In the year 1347, ships drifted into the port of Messina, Sicily. They carried silk, spices and treasure from the east. They also carried death. Sailors were already sick. Their skin burned with fever. Large dark swellings rose along their necks and under their arms. Within days, many of them were dead. No one understood what was happening. Within months, entire cities would fall silent. Within years, tens of millions would be gone. This was the beginning of what history now calls the Black Death. It would become one of the deadliest pandemics in human history, and today, in this film, we will journey back in time. With the help of modern AI, we will explore this ancient disease, uncover how it began, how it spread, and what truly happened during those dark years of history. The Black Death did not begin in Europe. Most historians trace its origins to Central Asia in the early 1300s. The disease was caused by a bacterium called Yersinia pestis, carried by fleas that lived on rats. Trade routes connected east and west, through what we now call the Silk Road. Merchants, caravans and armies traveled constantly across continents. When infected rats traveled with them, the disease traveled too. In 1346, during the Mongol siege of the city of Kaffa, modern-day Crimea, plague broke out among soldiers. Some accounts claim infected bodies were catapulted over city walls, possibly one of the earliest recorded forms of biological warfare. From there, fleeing merchants boarded ships across the Mediterranean. In 1347, the plague arrived in Sicily. Europe was about to change forever. Medieval cities were crowded, dirty and unprepared. There were no modern hospitals, no antibiotics, no understanding of bacteria. Rats thrived in narrow streets filled with garbage. Fleas jumped from rats to humans. The infection moved fast. Within months, Italy was overwhelmed. France was infected. Spain, England, Germany followed. By 1348, the plague had reached England. By 1350, it had spread as far as Scandinavia and Russia. The speed was terrifying. In some towns, half the population died within weeks. The disease did not respect class. Peasants died, priests died, kings died, entire families vanished. The Black Death often appeared in three forms: bubonic plague, the most common. Painful black swellings, called buboes, formed in the lymph nodes. Fever, chills, weakness followed. Death often came within 3 to 5 days. Pneumonic plague, infected. The lungs, victims coughed blood. This form spread directly from person to person through air. Septicemic plague infected the bloodstream. Skin turned dark due to internal bleeding. Death could come within hours. The blackened skin gave the pandemic its name, Black Death. People had no explanation. Some blamed bad air. Others blamed poisoned wells. Many believed it was God's punishment. Fear spread faster than the disease itself. Between 1347 and 1351, an estimated 75 to 200 million people died worldwide. Europe alone may have lost 1/3 to 1/2 of its population. Cities like Florence, Paris and London were devastated. Mass graves became common. In many places there were not enough living people to bury the dead. Fields went unharvested. Animals wandered unattended. Entire villages disappeared from maps. The world felt as if it were ending. When disaster strikes and no one understands why, society begins to fracture. Many Christians believed the plague was divine punishment. Groups called flagellants marched through towns, whipping themselves, begging God for mercy. Jewish communities were falsely accused of poisoning wells. Thousands were persecuted and killed in violent outbreaks across Europe. Trust collapsed. Doctors wore strange bird-like masks filled with herbs, believing it would protect them from bad air. Nothing worked. The plague returned in waves for decades. But history has a strange pattern. From catastrophe transformation can emerge. Because so many workers had died, labor became scarce. Surviving workers demanded higher wages. The feudal system began to weaken. Peasants gained more bargaining power over time. This shift helped pave the way toward economic modernization. Some historians argue that the social changes triggered by the plague helped create conditions that later led to the Renaissance. The old world was dying. A new one was being born. The Black Death was not just a disease. It was a turning point in human history. It exposed how connected the world had already become in the 14th century. Trade routes that carried silk and spice also carried invisible killers. It shattered faith, destroyed economies, and altered power structures. Yet humanity survived, and from the ashes of one of the darkest chapters in history, new ideas, new systems, and a new Europe slowly emerged. The Black Death reminds us of something powerful. Civilization is fragile, but it is also resilient. And even in the face of unimaginable loss, the human story continues.
And that was the time when death walked the earth, a world shattered by the Black Death. This is World Before Modern.